Unfortunately for us, we are now heading into another international break. But thankfully the Championship really left with a bang. In today's video, we're here to go over all the weekend's action. As always, I want to get your thoughts in the comments down below. Plenty of talking points right now, both at the top and bottom of the Championship. Without any further ado, let's jump in. Matty says, honestly, I didn't think Birmingham were that good versus West Brom. The penalty was a bit lucky and then spurred us on to win the game. I think EUSTACE tactically set us up perfectly to counter West Brom and we were clinical. It's a result to build on, but annoyingly, October is horrible for us. I think that's a pretty fair assessment of this game, to be honest. Obviously, John Swift took the lead for the visiting side with a nice strike before Birmingham fought their way back into it. The pick of the goals being that fantastic Gardner free kick, which went on to seal the 3 points for Birmingham. The result now leaves Blues 6th in the table, having won their last 2 matches. But was that the last time we saw John Eustace in the job in the dugout at Birmingham? Because the speculation relating to his future is absolutely rife as of recording. And since recording that video, Birmingham have released a club statement saying that John Eustace will no longer be the Birmingham manager. He won't be the man to take Blues forward, which is a bit of a baffling decision really, with Birmingham currently sat 6th in the Championship. Birmingham fans, I want to get your perspective on this one down in the comments below. It does bring back flashbacks to that decision to sack Gary Rowett all those years ago, only to hire Gianfranco Zola, and we all know how disastrous that appointment turned out to be. It's now been reported that Wayne Rooney will be the man to take over at St Andrews, and I mean, there's so many factors and spinning plates to take into consideration with this one. It's been reported that the new ownership wants that big stardust new name to come in, but from a footballing point of view, does this one make sense? I'm not sure it does. I've got a feeling that the higher ups at Birmingham had already made this decision maybe a little bit earlier, but they wanted to wait until this international break to part company with Eustace, and it just so happens that he's won, you know, his last 2 matches, and it leaves Birmingham sat 6th in the Championship and the owners with a bit of egg on their faces. But if we go back to that run that Birmingham had in around the start of September, I think they went 5 games without a win. I've got a feeling that the ownership had made their mind up on Eustace during that run of form, and then they wanted to wait until maybe Rooney became available to finally make that decision to get rid of Eustace. But I still think Rooney's got quite a bit to prove, and this feels like a massive gamble for the Blues ownership to take, which I'm not sure is a necessary one with them sitting in the playoffs as things stand. For what it's worth, I actually think that Rooney did a good job at Derby, especially in that second season, despite the relegation. You know, they had the massive point deduction. It remains to be seen, though, how much of the heavy lifting Liam Rossini was maybe doing behind the scenes at Derby then. We've obviously seen Rooney go to DC United, and that's not really been that successful for him. So Blues fans, get in the comments down below. I want to hear your thoughts on this one. Mark, who's a Sunderland fan, says first half was a good entertaining game, then Dan Neil gets sent off for saying it's an effing foul, which is harsh in my opinion. Second half, Middlesbrough battered us and got their 4 goals. All we can do now is move on after the international break, and the game-changing moment in this game was definitely the red card. Up until that point, it had been fairly even between the 2 sides, and we saw at half-time the tempers really starting to boil over. The red card was incredibly harsh for my view, but credit to Borough for really taking advantage of that extra man in the second half. Isaiah Jones, I thought, was brilliant in that second half of Middlesbrough. And as this comment says, Borough playing with real confidence now. Still got gaping holes in our defence. Roberts cut right through us, but as long as we keep the front end firing, we'll be fine. It feels like last season again. I think that's an important point to note, really. That's now 4 wins on the bounce for Michael Carrick's side, and as we saw last season, this team is definitely capable of going on the run. Their underlying attacking numbers have been promising throughout the season. It's always been a question of really tightening up that defence, and while they still are conceding chances, now back-to-back clean sheets for Michael Carrick's side, and a real positive swing of momentum now heading into this international break. Ben, who's a Cardiff fan, says we played terrible, but I'll take the point considering how bad we were. Sort out our mistakes over the international break and we'll be fine. Got a favourable run after the break, and I think that's true looking at Cardiff's upcoming fixtures. After the break, they've got games against Blackburn, Huddersfield, Bristol City, Stoke and Norwich, all games which I think Cardiff are well within their reason to be thinking they'll get quite a few points from that run of fixtures. Not the finest of performances in this one against Watford. Obviously Cardiff did take the lead through that set piece situation, but other than that didn't craft out all too many clear-cut opportunities, and there were quite a few moments where Cardiff gifted Watford some real clear-cut moments where Watford really should have capitalised. As we can see here, Watford accumulated accumulated an XG of over 2 goals, and it was really down to how wasteful they were in the end that Cardiff managed to get a point from this game. But a point for Cardiff keeps them within touching distance of the top 6 right now, whereas a point for Watford doesn't do much for them in lifting them up the table. I think this comment from a Norwich fan is very telling about their situation right now. It was pretty bad. We were lucky to get a point against Coventry, even though their goal came from an unlucky own goal. A lot of our fans have turned on Wagner now after that and want him to leave. The toxic atmosphere from last season is returning, unfortunately. I think, as the comment says there, they were probably quite fortunate to get a point from this game. It was Johnny Rowe with another strike to give Norwich the lead in this game, but other than that, didn't have much attacking quality about their play, particularly in the second half, where they were looking to soak up the pressure, sit back and let Coventry really come at them. Norwich don't think managed a shot on target in that second half. Van Dijk does well for the Coventry equaliser, puts it into an area where Gibson has to get something on the ball and ends up putting it into the back of his own net. From a Coventry perspective, it's another draw, which is, fairly frustrating because they've just been so draw heavy so far this season, but it really doesn't feel like Cov are a million miles away from being that side in and around the playoffs that they were last season. Really just a question of turning a few more of these draws into wins, and scoring late goals, that was a real strength of Coventry's from last season, so that going forward I'm sure will serve them well. From a Norwich perspective, they are still there or thereabouts in the playoffs conversation. I know we're very early on, but Norwich are 7th at the moment. What I feel will be really telling for the Norwich boss after this international break is the fact that we go straight into a 3-game week, and Norwich have some massive tests coming up against Leeds, Middlesbrough and Sunderland, and if they don't show their quality in those 3 matches, suddenly we could be left in a situation where he is shown the door perhaps, and that pressure continues to grow. Leicester says, I thought Preston played quite well despite the defeat. Their work rate off the ball was great for most of the game. The individual quality of some of the Ipswich players, including a man of the match performance from Brandon Williams, delivered the win for Ipswich, and I think that's a pretty fair summary of the match. Certainly no complaints from my perspective that Ipswich were the better team in this game, crafted out some really good chances, and as shown by the underlying numbers, created the better chances as well. I thought that Preston improved, probably most so after the break when we went ahead and made those changes. Don't think we were quite set up right in that first half, and ultimately conceded some sloppy goals. The one from the set piece is a real disappointing one because we'd apparently been training for that all week, only to go ahead and fall into the same trap that other sides have fallen into so far this season. And then, the Brandon Williams goal is brilliant from an Ipswich perspective, for him to run the sort of length of the pitch and then to deliver the finish as well, but poor from a Preston point of view defensively, and that's sort of where we've been caught out recently. We've conceded 11 goals in our last 3 matches now. I know that we've had a really tough run of fixtures recently, but these were ultimately the matches that we became unstuck in last season against the sides in and around the top 6. We didn't get any change out of them, and it's sort of been a familiar pattern so far this season with the 3 matches we've lost recently. We tend to perform very well against the bottom half sides, but ultimately Preston aren't going to kick on if we can't get something out of these sorts of matches. But credit to Ipswich, another fabulous display at Portman Road. It now means they go 8 points clear of Preston, who are still holding on to that spot in 3rd place at the moment. And real credit to Ipswich, even if they don't hold on to that place in the top 2 come the end of the season, this team is absolutely going somewhere under Kieran McKenna right now. And even if it's not going to be, promotion to the Premier League this season, I'm in no doubts that they will get there eventually, because the brand of football, the whole feeling around the club right now just feels like it's building towards another promotion, which is incredibly special for a team in their first season back up in the Championship. Liam, who's a Bristol City fan, says far too easy for Leeds to score those goals. Knight for the first one has had a nightmare. Leeds are good, however they are not the same level as Leicester. Yes, we deserve to lose, but I can see why they can see goals, and I think Leeds definitely the deserved winners of this one. Looking at the chances they crafted out, probably should have had more than the 2 goals they went on to score in this game. Rutter having one of the misses of the season with that chance he had rolled to him across the goal line in the first half, but Leeds showed their attacking quality in the end. It was Perot with the pick of the goals, lovely strike from outside the box with his left foot. And looking at Leeds' upcoming fixtures, I think that they'll fancy their chances in their next 3 matches after the international break. They've put together back-to-back wins. I think they've bounced back fairly well from that defeat they had against Southampton last week, and after the international break, go into games against Norwich, Stoke and Huddersfield. If Leeds can take maximum points from those games, they'll be looking fairly healthy going into a massive clash we've got at the start of November away at Leicester. That game should be plenty of fun. Leicester City continue to sweep aside every side they're coming up against right now, sitting pretty at the top of the Championship table, 10 points clear of third place, and as things stand, they're projected to finish this season with a whopping 125 points. This could be one of the best teams we've ever seen at this level, and especially in those home matches, no one can really get close to them. Ultimately, these aren't the matches that Stoke's success will be judged upon come the end of the season. What's worrying from Stoke's perspective is this loss is part of a larger overarching narrative. Ultimately, it means Stoke have now lost 7 of their opening 11 matches. They head into this international break having only won 1 of their last 8 games, and they're only sitting 2 points above the relegation zone. Usually these international breaks are an opportunity for owners to switch out and change their manager, and Neil right now I think will be one of those managers feeling the pressure. Now, as we said at the start of the season, Neil was back to such a degree where I think there will be patience within the Stoke board. But looking at their fixtures coming out of this international break, they really could be up against it. Their first 3 fixtures after the break see them going up against Sunderland, Leeds and Middlesbrough. 3 games which right now I'm not sure I'd be fancying Stoke in any of them. Another really impressive showing from Leicester though, and there just seems to be no stopping them right now. Some nice interplay in and around the box, creating good chances, and ultimately they have those lethal finishes at the top end of the pitch to put those chances away. Glimpse HC says Hull City, bit sloppy, 5 draws now, we're slipping down the table. Yeah, Hull have been fairly draw heavy recently. 5 of their last 8 league matches have all ended level. This one against Millwall really seemed to be a game of 2 halves. First half it was definitely Hull who carried more of the attacking threat, and while there were a couple of mishaps by Millwall in that back line, Hull took advantage. Philogene continues to really impress. Thought he was really lively for Hull, especially in that first half. But second half, credit to Millwall, they came out with more attacking intent about them. I think justifiably got that point in the end. Looking forward to having a bit more of a look at Millwall up close and personal after the international break when they will be coming to Deepdale. For Hull, it doesn't feel like they're far off right now, but as was the case last season when they were quite draw heavy, that sort of seeped into their play recently. Jack, who's a Swansea fan, says fantastic performance and an overall deserved 3 points. Looking better every game now, and we're definitely improving now considering we were 21st a couple of weeks ago and now 12th, and this just shows the power of momentum in the Championship and how quickly narratives can go ahead and flip. Fair play to Michael Duff for really changing around the mood and atmosphere at Swansea, because let's not forget just a few weeks ago how toxic things were looking around the club after what was a dismal start to the season, which was summed up by that South Wales derby defeat against Cardiff. But since that point, I think he's used that as a real turning point in their season, and they have been fantastic. They've now won their last 4 matches, up to mid-table, and suddenly in a view to look up the table instead of down it. They came back from behind in this game. Some key performers who I picked out from this game, thought Jamie Patterson had some really nice touches in and around the final third. Cullen looked really effective on that right hand side, and then it was undoubtedly Cooper with the goal of the game with that fantastic strike from outside the box. From a Plymouth perspective, slightly concerning, not the best run heading into this international break with back-to-back home defeats. They've slipped down the table quite considerably recently. They're now down in 18th after the international break. They've got games coming up against West Brom, Sheffield Wednesday and Ipswich. They'll be looking for a healthy return out of those games to sort of ease their way between themselves and the relegation zone. QPR don't find themselves in a good stage heading into this international break, having lost their last 3 consecutive matches. They sit 22nd in the league right now. Have just been thumped 4-0 by Blackburn. A Blackburn side, by the way, who are by no means coming into this game on sparkling form themselves. They'd lost their last 4 matches before putting 4 past QPR in this game. Now, to be fair to Blackburn, they were coming off the back of a really quite difficult fixture run in, and their underlying numbers have always suggested that Blackburn would come good at some stage and they would put in this sort of performance, but to QPR to be cut open so easily by Rovers in this game, I think is a huge concern going forward. From a Blackburn perspective, Sigurdsson especially really caught the eye in this one. A couple goals for him, along with Smodics and Dolan also getting in on the act, but they just found this one far too easy. I think the 4th goal really epitomised that. From how bad QPR were from a defensive standpoint and how one pass like that and one defensive blunder ultimately opened them up. Blackburn will be hoping that's the catalyst for them to kick on after this international break. For QPR, I really am fearing for them. We know that there's been a lack of goals in that side so far this season, and Ainsworth absolutely needed to nail down the defensive stability within this side, and at one stage of the season it seemed like they had that, but going off their last few games, especially at home, it really feels like they've reverted to type of what they were like last season. QPR and Sheffield Wednesday, the only two Championship sides yet to win a match at home this year. QPR and Sheffield Wednesday, the only two Championship sides yet to win a home match this season. Liam, who's a Sheffield Wednesday fan, says fair result in the end, can't fault the effort of the players, we tried, there's just no attacking threat in this team if that wasn't already evident. I think that's a fair summary of this game. No surprises that both teams here accumulated an XG of less than 1 goal in this game. There was actually only 1 shot on target between both sides, so I can't imagine this one was the most entertaining affair going on this weekend. Obviously, it was Darren Moore's return to Hillsborough with this new Huddersfield side, and honestly, this one did feel like a bit of a missed opportunity for both sides here, a bit of a missed opportunity for Moore to be maybe a little bit more aggressive in his team selection with that Huddersfield side and really take the game to Wednesday, looking to get his first win as Huddersfield boss. And for Wednesday, if they're going to get out of this mess they currently find themselves in, picking points up against the teams around them will be absolutely crucial. Speaking of playing the teams around them, after the international break, Sheffield Wednesday going to a 3-game week against Watford, Plymouth and Rotherham. 3 absolutely crucial games for Wednesday, and we'd expect them to have their new manager in place by then. In terms of this one though, goalless, not the best spectacle. Christian, who's a Southampton fan, says we weren't clinical enough and were eventually punished for it. We need a stronger mentality once we go 1-0 up. Yeah, really expected Southampton to win this game, especially when they did take the lead. It was Russell Martin's side who had the majority of the ball, the majority of the chances as well, accumulating an XG of over 3 goals in this game, but Rotherham kept plugging away. Fair play to Victor Johansson, who had to be kept on his toes throughout the entire afternoon, making 9 saves in this game. Southampton got into some really dangerous areas. Kyle Walker-Peters looked like he had a good game from a creative aspect, but ultimately that final touch just wasn't quite there, and Rotherham hit them with the ultimate sucker punch in the second half. Jordan Hugill with a peach of a finish. Jordan Hugill is one of those players who can pop up with that exquisite moment of magic. He did very similar in the game against Preston, which finished level earlier in the season, and Rotherham now finally off the mark on the road this season with their first point away from home. Frustrating one for Southampton because they had more than enough chances to win this one, but a really good point there for Rotherham. There we have it though guys, that will now wrap it up for today's video. If you did go on to enjoy, make sure to leave a like and do get all your thoughts in the comments down below. What do you make of your team's performance this weekend in the Championship? Apart from that though guys, thank you very much for tuning in, and I'll see you all in the next one.